Welcome to the American Hardcore Podcast. I'm your host, Stephen Blush. In our first few episodes, we talked about how the hardcore punk scene changed the course of music. Not just the speed and the sound, but the very reason for making music. For instance, punk was the most radical music to date. The 70s punk bands, though, paid lip service to terms like do-it-yourself and all ages. But it was the hardcore bands like Black Flag and Dead Kennedys who set in motion this whole idea of DIY. They put it into practice. The original punk bands were also part of the sex and drugs and rock and roll generation. But then came the DC band Minor Threat with a song called Straight Edge. A like-minded and equally intense band out of Boston called SSD or SSD Control took that concept to the next level, helping turn straight edge into the lifestyle it would become. So let's introduce this week's guest, one of my favorites, Al Barile, founder and guitarist of the mighty Boston band SSD. Welcome, Al, to the American Hardcore Podcast.
Hi, good to be with you.
Great to have you. You know, there's so much to discuss, and there's so much, as you know, we don't want to turn this into War and Peace, like the longest thing ever done. But I know there's a lot of modern politics we want to talk about too, but I thought it would help to go way back. Talk about your youth growing up in working class Lynn, Massachusetts, Al, the hockey player, your introduction to rock and roll, and then your introduction to punk rock. So just kind of give us a little flavor of Al growing up.
Yeah, so I grew up in Lynn, Mass, which is a very working class union kind of town, but suburbs, which is probably 30 minutes out of Boston, to the north of Boston. So grew up, loving family, mother and father, provided me with the things I needed to do. And, a big theme in my life was teams. Okay. My whole entire life it's been based around teams and teaming and things like that. So as a kid, I had a little crew, and we terrorized the neighborhood, basically. Not glamorizing anything, but certainly various levels of delinquency were. So I had that crew, and that, and then we, all us guys played sports and hockey and football, and migrated through junior high school and high school, and somewhere along the way, say around in the 70s, in the early 70s, I started to get into like the Jackson 5, that era of like, I guess, that's when I first became aware of music. I'd say early 70s, and then 75 was probably a transitional time. But I mean, early Jackson 5 and the Osmond Brothers and that stuff, like the stuff you see in the magazines. And then, I remember Don McLean, American Pie. And I used to go downtown in Lynn. I used to take the bus or go with my mother. And there was a little record shop, it wouldn't even be even before independent music. It'd be this little mom and pop record store. And they'd have the singles behind the thing. The albums used to be over here, but it was not a lot of albums, I'd go in there and buy the singles. I remember buying Rick Derringer, Rock and Roll Hookie Coo, and Dobie Gray, Drift Away. So those were that's my original what I bought. I bought the Jackson 5, like ABC, one more. So I can't remember all the singles, but all those singles that came out, Puppy Love, Donny Osmond. So that whole thing up until that period was how I really got into music. But then 75, so 8th grade would be 75. I remember started getting into trouble a little bit more, like maybe just, pushing the envelope a little bit more. Not like really bad trouble, but like pushing the envelope. And so Queen was the first band I became aware in the 8th grade. Night of the Opera had just come out. And I remember seeing the Queen video on TV, when Night at the Opera, and saying, geez, what's this? So that definitely peaked. There was a girl, Christine Engelman, I believe, and she was a big Queen fan, and she was really talking up Queen. So got into Queen. Fast forward, 75, still on, a bunch of sports teams, baseball, hockey, and stuff like that. And then started having some issues like 75, 76, like things started where like these teams were kind of falling apart in front of me. Like my sports teams were kind of falling apart, and my local guys that I hung around with kind of some little bit falling apart, reshaping itself. And so I guess you could say I was like lost a little bit, maybe, you know. So from 75 to like 80, I guess definitely were like my searching out years, trying to figure out what's going on. And I also felt that I really could during these issues with like these teams, like I had conflicts with like you know, the hockey coach, the baseball coach, and my father was involved in this scenario too. So my father's very outspoken. He's, you know, my father wouldn't take shit from anyone, you know. So, you know, I have to almost, you know, my father's involved in this whole thing. So I really didn't feel like I had a voice in many ways. Okay. I felt I'm a very shy guy to begin with, and I'm not sure if that even comes across, but I am a very shy guy. And I didn't feel a lot of self-empowerment at all. You know, I felt you know, I felt it inside me, but I couldn't really like when I was with my friends, you know, you could see that I kind of knew where we were going, you know, very self-confident, self-aware. Once I got outside my circle, I started to lack confidence, you know. So I think those years were like you know, just observing the world and trying to understand what was going on, you know, observing people, and really kind of I think those were the years that kind of built up the like what would end up being the Kids Love to Say, you know. Those were the years that would lead to those first two albums, really, you know, because I was kind of like really you know, experiencing things for the first time in my life. There's a lot of things I wouldn't classify them as betrayal, but there was a lot of adult kind of, you know, adults in my life were making confused decisions with me, you know. Like, I mean, there's things that I didn't quite understand. I was a member of a golf course around that time. I don't want to go too deep into this, but I was a member of a golf course. The golf course had a very inert name called Happy Valley. Okay, well, the golf pro at that course used to take little boys in the back room and do things that he shouldn't have done. Okay, well, in '75, they renamed the golf course after that guy's name. So, like, you know, I'm in the 8th grade. I mean, I'm thinking like, you know, none of us. Number one, he didn't do anything to me, so I couldn't say anything really, right? I'm not gonna like rat out all my friends, right? The odd thing is I went in the back room with him, but the guy never made a move on me, you know? So that kind of messed with my head too a little bit. But my friends, you know, never spoke out. But I mean, it wasn't even about that. In fact, I used to think about the guy's family. I used to feel bad that if this ever came out, you know, with the guy's family don't know anything. Okay. So what that taught me at that point was you really can't trust, you know, maybe what people think, you know, or even putting a name on a building. I mean, how do you know what's really going on there? So I really did start to look at the world a little differently then, a little skepticism. I started to really examine what people were, you know, real and which were the fake people, you know, and that's kind of how I have lived. You know, I'm 59 right now. That's really, I've lived the entire life that way, about really trying to figure out who are the people that I really believe in, and who are the people I want to trust, and who are the fake people, you know. And you know, I don't think it's my place. I'm not going around here calling out fake people and phony people. But you know, if in my if they a part of my circle of interest, you know, then I'm gonna call them out, you know. And
So, you
that's
know, you bring up this aspect of truth, and I want to get back to that later
yes,
because that I
it's
think
an important theme
that's
in
a
my
big
life.
part of you. Yes.
Yeah.
Um, but I know
I'm just gonna
it kind
say,
of sounds.
without truth,
Yeah.
my whole thing is it's like nothing, you know. Like me, if there's no truth, then like you might as well say I don't exist, basically, you know. So that's how important it is, you know.
Mhm. No, I've always felt that about you, and I'm going to talk about that a little bit longer, a little bit
Yeah.
later. Um, One thing, I guess this leads into punk rock somehow, and I know for myself as somebody who was athletic but didn't quite fit in with the jocks and all that kind of stuff, was that punk really spoke to me as an outsider. So I assume it's something similar with you. So kind of, I think we all
Well, you know,
share
like
that. It was not a cool thing to get into at the time. So
punk or sports.
punk rock, yeah, punk rock.
Okay. Yeah. Well, certainly punk rock wasn't. You know, I mean, a lot of people don't even understand back then, but it was, people did not, people fucked with you, like it was I'm not gonna say it was a war, but I mean, you go out, you don't know what's gonna happen, I mean, it's not, it wasn't like the culture now, I think, accepts that kind of thing, and we weren't the kind of punk rock guys that were more like the scary, the ones you stare at. We're more like the ones that you're afraid of, maybe, or something. Like, I mean, if you look at it, so it's just it's just image or whatever. Like what people think. But so, anyways, but it's important because I don't think people today could relate to what is being, following that kind of music. Being well, it's a little risky, let's say,
Mhm.
But I did gravitate to that because to be honest, and it's once again, I found that that's the most honest music there is. I mean, the honesty of that music really is what drew me to it. Like I'm gonna tell you, like 70, so 75 Queen, 78 Cheap Tricks, 79, the Van Halen's, my correction, ACD. Couldn't see ACDC early because they weren't super popular, and they were playing the club circuit. Now, and that ties into the all ages thing. I wanted to see ACDC. There's this club in Boston called the Paradise. You couldn't get in the Paradise. I wanted to see Cheap Trick played there 78 or 77. I wanted to see him. Can't do it. So like it's just like I was saying to myself, why don't they let me in to see this band? But ultimately, I learned over the years. You know why? Because I want to sell alcohol. I mean, it's not about music here. So I mean, read a lot of my lyrics say about selling drugs at 3 a.m. and stuff. To me, there's like a conflict there. Like I mean, I think kids want to see music, and they want to sell booze. Like even the all ages thing. To be honest, I mean, we pushed that. I mean, I'm not gonna say, Ian probably. I think Ian was like adamant he wouldn't play anything but with all ages. We try, we wouldn't have like a hard line, but it was pretty hard. Like I know we played the Rat once, and that was just one and done. But we didn't play many over 21 clubs. But I'm trying to get to the point is we tried to force the all ages thing, but you end up doing the Sunday afternoon all age thing, okay? And I gotta be honest, that Sunday afternoon is like the last thing I want to be is in a club in the summer, okay? The last thing I want to be is in a club, okay? So I resented the shit out of that, and I know what was up. That afternoon opportunity was another. It was like additional income they could draw. Like if you're a restaurant, all of a sudden you open for breakfast. Well, you just bring a more economic opportunity. So what did all ages do for them? It brought more income, possibility. Not a lot of income, because I'm sure there's more money in selling booze, but it brought probably they can use it on their marquee, black, whoever played here, all ages. Look, they make podcasts about it, glorifying it. But to be honest, it wasn't even right. We should have had a Saturday night all ages. That's the way I look at it. I don't think we should have been relegated to Sunday afternoon. So I was never really cool with Sunday afternoon. I wanted all ages, but I wanted it like everyone else. I don't I don't think that it's mutually exclusive booze and music, whatever. I didn't go for that shit at all. So we started off in alternative spaces. I mean, and these ideas were hatched way before SSD. I was trying to think of how I could be a promoter, how I could do this, where I would put these shows on. So before the band had even formed, I believe, like I was trying to find, but I mean, it was important that the space had to be in Boston. Okay. Couldn't be, I'm going way off now, but it was important. It couldn't be in the suburbs really, because this had to be a Boston thing. I felt, it had to be centrally this. So, it just made it a little bit more difficult, but we found a way to kind of put Boston on what I feel is its path to, whatever it was.
Everything you just said before kind of led into a question that I had, which was talking about
Okay.
the rise of SSD control.
Okay.
What did you set out to do, and what was in your head at the time?
Well, my head was to just be an impact band, like I mean, it's I must have big balls or something, because I probably shouldn't say that, but like I mean, I'm a kid from Lynn who really didn't play guitar that long, and learned it in a very unconventional way. Like I never learned by playing other people's songs. I kind of like maybe I think I learned one Ramones song. I think maybe a Ramones song and a Black Flag song. I don't even remember. My guitar teacher, and that was it pretty much. I never really enjoyed I never really sat down and said, "Oh, this is great." I thought that guitar was a vehicle to the truth. It was like my way, because you got. I say this to other people, and I don't think people understand it. But growing up in my high school, the kid who played guitar was the guy who had like long hair down to here, maybe like a scraggly mustache, and he was like everything was Led Zeppelin. So that was the kid that I interacted with, and I used to say, "This isn't me. I'm not gonna. How am I gonna play guitar? This isn't gonna work. Who's gonna want to play in a band with me? So like I used to think this is crazy. But I said, well, I gotta try. So I told him, like, I want to try this. So I tried, and some in my head, it was all about being in this band. Like it wasn't even about learning guitar. It was about being in this band and writing these songs. And it wasn't even about getting on stage. I gotta admit, I never really had a. I didn't do any of this because I said I'm going to go on stage and I never really said I want to go up on stage. I don't really like being the center of attention. I'm very shy actually, but I said I'm going to do what I have to do, because I figured I'm gonna voice, and I'm gonna really what it was. I was gonna form a team. That's really it. I'm gonna start another team right now. Like it's time to start another team. So that's where I put an ad in the Boston Phoenix, that looking for these people. I happened to meet my bass player at Dead Kennedy's show, I believe, and maybe some other shows. So so I had a plan. I think I had a lot of courage, or a lot of gumption to think I could pull this off. Because like I said, I don't think I was like the prototype guy that I mean, if you asked anybody in high school, I don't think they would have picked me to be the guy in this in a band period, let alone a hardcore punk band. I'm not sure. I just didn't think it was like in the cards for me to be this guitar player. You know what I'm saying? So that's like the decontrol. It's more like an empowerment thing, and society system. It's just like maybe like the plan that maybe someone had for you, or the plan of how it's going, and maybe you just say, fuck it, I don't go along with that plan. I'm going to do something else. And unfortunately, because I'm not taking, I'm not proud of this, but I mean, like that's kind of been my struggle my entire life, is I'm constantly like fighting with people and fighting that plan, and that, believe me, that plan never stops, it appears, like right through my work, man. That plan, I was fighting that plan all along, so it's tiring actually.
Yeah. I have a question that actually relates to one of the images behind you. I didn't even know
Okay.
it, but I
That Les Paul, right?
reading.
Oh.
I remember reading some Boston New Wave magazine before the first album came out, or right around that time, and they were really upset about this song called "How Much Art Can You Take?"
Yeah.
Which to me seemed like a battle cry. So why don't you kind of talk about? I don't know if people really understand what you meant by the new wave versus hardcore kind of. Whatever.
Well,
Take that where you will.
Once again, it's I don't want to keep on going back to themes, but it's the theme of like, so when I entered the Boston music scene, I got to be honest, there wasn't too many bands I could relate to. Coming from my background, I didn't feel like I didn't find many, if any, if any. And I think I saw the Neighborhoods a few times, and it's all there's bands that like Springer liked, La Peste and Pastiche and Nervous Eaters, these like, so Boston, I think, had a certain sound going on, and it wasn't the sound I wanted, so like How Much Art was the battle cry to blow it up, really, so it was like hey, guess what, I'm blowing the scene up right now. So like, I gotta admit to you, it was hey, I don't know if maybe I said it like that to someone. I don't think I did. I usually try to make my taglines ambiguous, but I mean, that certainly was the battle cry, was to say, there's a new sheriff in town here, and we're not going to play this game, so we're going to change it a little bit. So How Much Art was like, and I don't know, like I definitely know. It's interesting because we didn't do it in their places, because their place would be, I call the Rat. That's, I'd say, their central thing. We did it in a gallery, so there's the How Much Art thing. Like it's like we're gonna start in the gallery and work outwards. They're in the clubs, and they're art band. I call them art bands, post punk, whatever. I used to call them art bands. And they, I don't know, like, and I'm gonna do it or not. So
I
no,
just I immediately connected with your band when you did that. I mean, not that I even didn't like the art bands,
yeah,
but
yeah.
I just really, as a suburban kid, really understood where you were coming from. And it really
Well,
immediately connected with me.
I think it was a big changing point in Boston music scene in a way. You know, people might not know it, but there was, because I could go down a list of bands that similar to maybe when like the grunge bands came into the hair metal scene in a way. You know, all of a sudden they're looking around like, what hit me? You know, I mean, it's not much different actually. You know, but we didn't have the help of MTV. We just like were, you know, on the street doing it. You know,
Yeah,
so
it's pretty incredible, the power of this underground music that you and a bunch of other bands, of
yeah,
course,
yeah, yeah. No, no.
represent.
I'm
Yeah.
just I you
You
know, I don't
know, there
know.
was this word, I don't know if you know the word, if I mean, we know the word, but
Yeah.
the word zeitgeist kind of means like something that happens all around you and there's not really a reason. It's just everyone has a certain feeling. And to me, that's what hardcore was. It wasn't like you could turn on the radio and hear this music or anything. Just everyone knew that they had to take punk and turn it up a notch. You know, it
Yeah, I
was,
mean, I tell you, it was the most, you know, because there's two different, you know, two different parts of me. There's the fan part of me, and then when I became part of the band, I had to kind of like push that fan part away. Actually, you know, a lot of people don't know it, but I mean, so I, you know, like in the late '70s, you know, from '75 on, I used to, you know, love going looking in the store those album covers, you know, like imagining what's inside of it. So I was like a record guy, you know, but so the, you know, in '80, you know, seeing the Black Flag, that yellow record, the I can't remember the
jealous again,
yellow.
jealous
Yeah,
again.
like, to be honest, I didn't. I bought Damage, but I'm like a Jealous Again guy. You know,
Yeah.
like to me that was like, that's where my heart and my love of music came out. You know, the Clash had put out you know, London Calling and stuff, and it was like, that was like my glory days, I guess. You know, of being a fan. You know, then they did Sand and East. You know, so like, you know, a lot of turmoil in bands and stuff like that. You know, so I mean, my glory days were like around that period there. So but what I'm trying to say is that as the band evolved, like '82, '83, I had to kind of put my music fandom, I don't know, you know, my love of music on the side, because, you know, I think other people might not do this, but you know, for me to be pure and organic, I can't be listening to all these other bands all the time. You know, how can it not influence what I'm going to play? You know, so I had to put it on the side. Like, you know, I don't own a lot of these albums that are quote the you know, some of the foundation albums. If it came after like '82 or '83, I probably didn't own it. You know, and I just couldn't. You know, I couldn't keep on. I thought it was like, you know, I mean, I don't know if other people feel that way, and I don't know if people in bands do. I got to believe they know what I'm talking about. But I mean, you can easily kind of get derailed a little bit if you hear some album, you know, just like I'm sure those metal guys, when they heard Nirvana or something, they must have got all fucked up, you know. So
Yeah, no, I relate to that. I mean, I don't really read, I mean, I read books, but I don't really
right.
read rock books or anything. You know,
Okay.
I try to, because it's going to mess me up. So I
Yeah,
definitely relate
definitely.
to that. You know, because of working in music for so long, I figured recently that I've seen nearly 10,000 bands
Live?
live. Yes,
Oh my
because I worked
God.
in clubs, I was a DJ. You know,
Yeah.
I've seen so, you know, you know, I've in New York, sometimes I've seen 4 shows in a night, you know, like that kind of a thing. And, you know, the number doesn't really matter, but considering I've seen so many bands, and SSD at the Chancery in DC still resonates with me because of that. And I just want you to talk about this. I just
Yeah.
recall feeling this commitment beyond music. There were ideals, there were concepts. It was about intensity, and it was about truth, like I said before. That's kind of what I got from SSD.
Yeah. I mean, like, that's what you should have got, is this bludgeoning truth, you know. Now, you know, some people might say, oh yeah, what kind of truth? You know, Springer is not straight edge, da 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 da. You know, you got to think about, that's pretty hard to have. You know, number one, Springer should get actually credit for singing my lyrics, I think, you know, because that's not easy to do. So I give him credit, you know. And if Springer had a strong voice and he really like said, no, I got lyrics, I'm gonna sing, you know, maybe we would have had a little bit of a different discussion. But I'm actually appreciative that he did sing my lyrics. So like, you know, that end of it, you know, yeah, someone say, well, it wasn't truth because Springer was in straight edge. You know what? I didn't sit and monitor Springer when he went out and said, hey, you guys need to follow these rules. There was no rules, there was never any rules. People misunderstood it. Straight edge was about a choice, okay? It was about a choice that I didn't think ever existed in my life, okay? So when I saw, like, I don't know, 80 or 81, when I saw the guys in DC, I didn't say, oh, I'm looking for another Bible to follow. I'm looking for another set of rules. I said, man, these guys are proud. They look like they look cool. I said, I you know, I like this. I said, this is and at the same time, late set, 79, 80, I had kind of, I started drinking when I was in the 8th grade, actually. So, weekend kind of warrior stuff, and started in the woods, and I wrote "Force Down Your Throat" in the woods, for Christ's sakes. Back, like, it was written in my head. It wasn't on paper, but I wrote it in the woods. And I always said to myself, "What am I doing here? I don't even know what I'm doing. Like, I didn't know this wasn't me necessarily. Okay, I'm not saying I didn't roll with it either. But I just knew it wasn't me. So to me, the truth is, like, basically, like, just like stripping away all that shit of what this maybe, and just like making decisions that you want to make. And so straight edge to me was always a choice. It wasn't a set of rules. It wasn't a guidelines. I didn't read Ian's song and say straight, oh shit, yeah, I'm not going to fuck anyone. I'm not going to do this, because it didn't make any sense to me, because you never could draw the line. You can't do this, can't do. To me, it was about really intentions and stuff, like, as far as you say, not getting fucked up. I mean, I at that point I hadn't tried all these drugs and everything. I didn't know, but I mean, it's just like, just living your life, in the true sense. That's kind of what I did, and try to be honest, try to be, just try to tell it real. I don't really go for the, so anyways, I think I'm going around
The
circles.
thing about truth really comes back too, because I look at, and this will fit in, because I was going to ask you about why straight edge spoke to you, and which you just kind of answered, but also like your enduring friendship with Ian MacKaye. And I was going to say, one thing that strikes me about the two of you, it comes back to that word truth. Like, I've never heard any bullshit from either of you guys.
I think that is what we share. That is our bond, really. I mean, we've never said, I mean, he's got a better memory than me. So, like, if I ever contradict anything and he says otherwise, I defer to him, But my recollection is we just talked like real shit. We didn't like, I'm not holding back anything, just say, hey, can I be on your label? Hey, it would help me, and whatever. Like, it was just no. So that is our bond, and that's I look, not many people that I really admire and look up to, and think that they a good, really great person or something. He's definitely one of them. So I didn't, like I said, I definitely knew, me and him are not the same person. We are so far different. And part of my truth was me being true to him. Like, I'm not going to go down to DC and all of a sudden tell him I don't like football and hockey and try to be something I'm not, because I want him to like me. You know what I'm saying? That was the difference. Like when I, all through the 80s, I'm blasting AC/DC along with Black Flag and everything else, because if all of a sudden I stop listening to AC/DC, that's not right. I mean, like, did something change? I don't like AC/DC right now. No, it's, to me, I didn't see the difference. To me, I looked at Black Flag, I looked at the Bad Brains and AC/DC. I looked at, they're all bands. I just thought some of the other bands were a little bit truer.
Mm-hmm. So. Ian had Discord Records, and you started a label called Exclaim, which had some great records, I must say. So talk about Exclaim, that whole venture, and that rise and fall, but also, you had these really cool record covers, like Kids Will Have Their Say and Get It Away. So,
And number one, I wasn't trying to sell records, like, I just wanted to make a record. Now when it's, how it's sold and whatever mechanisms that was all going to take care of itself. I didn't like get into it saying, okay, I want to sell, 1,000 records, 2,000 records, whatever, like, for monetary things, or like, for like, okay, this is what the band needs to do. No, we wanted to make a record. We needed to make that record. That Kids Will Have Their Say record was a very difficult record to make. We recorded once, kind of a demo. Actually, I think we made like a How Much Art demo the first time we went in the studio. And then we tried to record it. It wasn't happening. I think we tried again. this wasn't right. I think we tried one more time, and I think we finally got something that we put out. So it was not an easy record for us to make. A lot of it, no, meaning I didn't know I didn't know really what I was doing in the studio. I didn't know what I was doing in a band, let alone a studio. You know, so I was learning, learning a lot as it going on. And certainly the studio, I'd say, was the most foreign place for SSD, like being in the studio. It was really not comfortable for me. I think the entire process through 4 or 5 years, I never can say that I was completely comfortable in there. So making those records was difficult. So, but it made sense that, if I fronted the band and ready to make the recordings and, put the records out, I mean, well, I don't know, it just didn't even make sense thinking like I should ask someone else to put this record out. I don't even know if it's gonna sell or whatever. It just didn't make any sense. And it felt right doing it yourself. It was like, it felt like, I don't know. I didn't think, but I can tell you that Newbury Comics, the Boston on LA record was kind of hovering around the same time as our record was still, we were still trying to make it, maybe on the second or third time. And that offer came up, and, flat out I said, no way. No way am I going to give, to me, I felt they were jumping in, and I know both those two guys, they're not bad guys, but at the time I felt like they just like kind of doing the old typical jump in, not, I won't say cash in, jump in, whatever, it didn't feel right to me. And I know that record's gone on to be, very successful. A lot of people think that's the, one of the important hardcore records. That's great. But if you ask me, do I regret not being on it? Never, not for a second. Do I ever regret it? I think it's great. It's just not our record, like, it's not, wasn't going to be our record, and I would never have signed up for that title. I didn't agree that I would never agree to that title, so I think it's a stupid title. I thought it then, I think it now. I always thought it was a stupid title, so
you really helped drive this original Boston hardcore scene. You inspired kids to action, and you really set the bar in terms of the intensity. So kind of talk a bit about this early 80s Boston hardcore scene that as it grew up.
it was very intense, very forceful, and certain, I think we had our style. I don't think we were out to hurt people. I don't know if that maybe that's the best way to put it. If there was casualty, if there was if a beer got knocked out of someone's hand along the way, I don't look back on that as a big problem. I don't know if it's, that's the best way to put it. I mean, a lot of rumors happen along the way. If something like that happened, I'm not gonna say it didn't happen. It did happen, but I probably would maybe say, 50, I don't know what percentage. It wasn't intentional, but it could have been intentional. I don't really know how to answer that, but that's the folklore you might
hear about. It was
hear
just
about.
so yeah, great in like this rock and roll milieu, if you will, of like, knocking a beer out of somebody's hand, because the beer was such a thing with rock and roll, and you're it's
I don't. Plus, it's expensive too. Like, I'm not gonna say it didn't happen, because I'm sure it did happen, right? But on the flip side, even back then, I it's kind of cruel to knock a bear out of someone's hand they just paid $2 for or something. I don't know if I don't know. Like you said, I'm not gonna say it didn't happen, but it's not something I would do every day.
Yeah. I know you fairly well. I don't know if anyone knows Al Barile really well, and I don't think I know you well, but I'd say I know you fairly well.
Yeah.
And I remember being like, for the American hardcore film, being in your house watching a hockey game. It was a Bruins Rangers game. I don't know if you remember that.
No.
So
I remember.
So I know
what year was that, by the way?
What's that?
Was that like 2010 maybe, or 9? Or
yeah, something like that. Yeah.
Okay.
So so I know what you think of New York on a sports level, but what did you think of the New York hardcore scene? And kind of talk about, we hear stuff went down between New York and Boston. That's been talked about, but I don't know, just give your perspective on all.
Yeah, so my perspective is, my original perspective is, so I went to see Cheap Trick in like 1979 to the Palladium, and so that's like my first like me driving to New York by myself, whatever. And I grew up, I had a lot of hostility towards New York because of the Yankees Red Sox thing, actually more than the Rangers thing, because I grew up watching Bill Lee get pummeled by Greg Nettles, and it was a lasting image. It really bothered me, So, and at the time, the Yankees, those '70s Yankees were like, the bullies in as many respects. So I mean, I just couldn't relate to them. Like maybe if I grew up when Babe Ruth was there, maybe I could have been a bit. I don't know, but I could not relate to that '70s Yankees team, and it spilled over into my personal life, a little bit. Okay, so I'm not gonna say I didn't go down to New York with like some bitterness, but I did realize it was a sports thing. Like I'm not like a crazy guy that's just like, to me it would be like a friendly rivalry, like sports thing. But it wasn't like, because I can tell you the honest to God truth, New York was like our second home. We played New York definitely almost as maybe as Boston, I would think. It wasn't we didn't play a lot in general as a band, but New York treated us unbelievable. Like I mean, so I could never ever say that I didn't like New York. I mean, they really treated us well. I could never say anything bad things about New York. Now my impression of the New York scene. Okay, we're talking scene. When I first showed up there, my first time I saw Bad Brains in 171. Like probably this was like March of '81, I think. So that was like an underground thing. 171 is like quote the scene. You're not going to go to 171 if you're not part of the scene. But we happened to stumble in on 171, and there wasn't a scene. That's all I'm going to say. I mean, I didn't see much of a scene. Maybe Harley was. I don't even remember, but Harley was a little kid back then. I didn't see the scene. I remember there's a guy Booby. I remember these guys Booby. So I remember some of these early people, but there wasn't much of a scene. John Joseph, I remember, was around, but he was in the Bad Brains thing. I didn't know where he was from. Originally told me he was part of the DC thing, and then come to find out he really wasn't part of that DC thing. So, there's a little, I didn't really understand it, but then so as every year we would come back, and I think the final year we played was I think it was like Rock Hotel, Great Gildersleeves, and that was the moment that like now if you're asking me from an outside, I'd say that's the moment I said New York has a hardcore scene. Now it might have happened a little
New
bit earlier,
York
but
was
that was
late
the
to the
first time.
game. There's no doubt about it. Compared to DC and Boston, New York was a little bit later to the game. That's
yeah, but let's face it,
and it
New York.
created its own great thing, but it started slow.
Yeah, and it's New York has different baggage, let's say, because they grew out of the that whole Blondie, that whole thing, the CBG, the new whatever, so they got baggage there, they got hangers on from there. Like maybe they didn't blow it up like I was. Like if I was in New York, I would have blew up all those people, got them the fuck out of there. Like I think they let them linger on a little bit more or something. I don't really know. I'm not from there. I can't speak, but they had their own baggage to deal with. And, New York is based on those clubs that stay open to 4 in the night. So it's a different thing. Like I don't know if I would have endeared myself to that thing, but there's something beautiful about it too, in a way. It's got ugliness, it's got beauty in it. I'd say the same thing when I used to drive down to New York. My running joke, and some of my thing would be like, say I drove to New York in 1980, and then I go back in '84, and I'd say that's the same fucking piece. That's that fucking same rapper I saw in 1980 sitting there. And it was a joke, but I was serious. Like I swear to God, that fucking piece of trash was still there like 4 years ago. So that was like what I thought, and that's where Get It Away came from. Get It Away, I got pussed. I said, man, you gotta draw this scene in my head, okay? It's like New York, like the street New York, fucking trash everywhere, smoke everywhere, bottles broken. I said, this is what I see when I come to New York. Can you draw this for me? Now Pustin at the time only drew monsters and stuff, don't even know, but I love that cover, as much as I love the first cover, I love that cover, he nailed it, So I don't know if I don't even know what I'm talking about now.
Talk about some of the highlights of SSD, that 1981 to 1985 journey. What are like some highlights to you of that?
The highlights were some of those bigger shows we played. Like we definitely played a couple big shows in California. First time we made we drove straight across. That's the insanity of me, is that like a lot of bands toured along the way. We drove from Boston straight to LA. Like I had a different like perspective of things. Like to me, like I didn't if we played 3 days in a row or 3 days out of 4, I didn't think we'd play the 5th day. Like that's the way I looked at the band. We were like, you never know what could, not like the members weren't going to show up. It's more like, will we break everything on stage or something, like, would amps work, or I don't know, would I break my arm or something. I just had this like outlook that this is something I gotta manage. Like I can't unleash this beast all the time, otherwise it won't last. It'll eat itself up or something. So we just drove straight to California. That was a lot. Even though it was a bitch of a ride, I really opened my eyes to you know what was west of really Ohio, and that hence there's the Howie Rock cover. Never, kind of got some shit because they thought it was a rip off of Judas Priest. It really wasn't. It was really the lasting image in my mind from that '83 drive to California was this vast open road of nothing. Fields left and right, nothing, nothing. I'm like, this is America. I never thought this was America. I thought it was like, I thought it was like where I lived pretty much the whole stretch of the country, and that's really, at least at that time, 19. Maybe now it's different, but then it wasn't. There was this vast fields, and I was really taken aback by it, amazed by it, uh, mesmerized by it. Really got a different appreciation of America a little differently. But it was a tough ride. I did all the driving myself. We did it in like 3 days or 2 days. It was like insane. But anyways, it was just a different way of doing it. And then we played a big show with GBH, and this is like Santa Monica Civic, which is a like 2,000 or 3,000 seat. That's a big step up for us to go from whatever to. But I mean, we handled it very well. We didn't. I can honestly say, me personally, I never had any nerve issues ever. I didn't. I can't say I really desired to be on stage or like look forward to it, but I never was nervous. I never really didn't want to do it. Just it was like a job. That's the way I look at it. It was like
But that was an important show. I mean, friends of mine in LA have talked to me about that show. So I mean, it definitely you made an impact with in very little time there. In fact, that kind of leads to my next question, which was the odd part of SSD was that the band rarely toured because you had this union job with GE.
yeah,
So
yeah.
kind of talk about that whole divide, your day life versus your night life, and the
Yeah,
band
so I
versus job security, and like all that stuff.
Well, I mean, in many ways, the job paid for the band. Like I mean, I'm not. I've always been one to believe that I'm not going to like uh, plan on the band being the income generator or generate revenues. Generate revenue streams. To me, it's like I'll work to generate the revenue streams to pay for the band, and maybe the band will eventually pay for itself. I hope. And you know or turn a small profit, but never like some big profit. So I pretty much funded. I bought the van, I put the records out, did everything I could. So that job was important, but it also was important that I was growing up during that period. Like I was learning about unions and working in a corporation. I was geez, I think I burped. Cut that up.
Mhm.
I was you know I just learning, learning about people was like my next evolution. Because talk about phony people, man. Like, I'm like really that I got to exposed to the union and see the hypocrisy of a union, hypocrisy of workers, hypocrisy of management, different way. And I kind of formulated right, during that period of like, well, I'm not going to be like that. I refuse to be like that, even if it means that I won't get ahead or I won't advance in the company. I'm not going to be like that. I'm going to be my own person. I'm going to live my own truth. Like I'm going to be the, and as far as when I say this truth part, it's like everyone's truth might be a little. There is only one truth, but I'm saying my truth might be not facts. When I say my truth, my destiny, what I'm supposed to do, how I'm supposed to live. When I say truth, when I say the truth matters, that's like that's the ultimate real. That's real facts, not the alternative facts that we're seeing now today. So I think that could confuse people. I hope it doesn't, but
No, it makes sense. Um, t- um, Tell us about the breakup of SSD.
well, I think to understand the breakup, I gotta take it back to the musical transition. So, Get It Away. I mean, Get It Away comes out. We add a second guitar player. He doesn't write those songs with us, but he's recorded with us. So we layer it. So we have this new expansive sound that's really actually exciting, and we're excited. We tour, we don't tour. We drive to LA on that '83, okay, and we play like 4 shows or whatever. We drive straight home. We play 3 shows or 4 shows. We drive straight home. So, now, we're in the process of writing How We Rock, and when I look back, I thought the first two records, I thought we wrote some good riffs. I'm the main songwriter, so analyzing my own work. I thought I wrote some good riffs, but I didn't think I wrote complete songs. Okay, I thought that I thought the attachment to lyric to music, definitely needed to get better. And I constantly do this self analysis my entire life. So this is a constant thing. I'm not playing armchair quarterback later on. These are the thoughts that we were having. So, and I said Springer, and I do regret some of this, and I can explain. But I said Springer's need to up his game a little bit. He's got to get better. And I could get into the real minutia of it, of his singing, but there's certain things that he needed to improve upon in the minutia. Okay, so we sent him the voice lessons. We tried to really help him. At the same time, musically, all these bands like Gangrene and Jerry Kids were on the scene, and my impression were they played fast and they played really well fast. Okay, my impression, once again, like hearing you speak about when you saw us here or there, you got to understand. I don't know if people understand this, but when I'm on stage and we play, right? I don't know if we're any good or not. I really don't know. Like I can judge by some reaction. I can feel it sometimes, but sometimes I don't really know how we stand up, whatever. So I can't say like I was like hearing a lot of like, hey, you guys are the most incredible band in the world, well, don't change a thing, whatever. I wasn't hearing a lot of that. We weren't getting a lot of great reviews saying this album's the most incredible album in the world or anything, So, in many ways, I'm just like doing my own self-analysis, but not getting a lot of data from anyone else, So I thought we had to slow down, number one, because I thought like when we were on stage, I can tell you these thoughts were in my brain. When we played on stage, I don't know if people even realize it, but the sound, when you're playing on stage, what you hear, and realize back then there wasn't a lot of monitors and stage sound. So what you play on stage and what the audience hears are two different things. It's never the same, okay? What you hear through these two ears depends on where you are and all these things. So half the time, then I'd get off stage and I'd hear Gangrene play, and I'd say, "Oh my God, these guys are so tight. They're amazing." I go, "We're gonna eventually people will just like forget about us if we keep up on this path." I go, we really have to hone in on what we do well and kind of like work within those things." And I made the conscious decision. I go, we got to slow down. Now, on hindsight, a little bit, I think some of that chaos and out of control, whatever feeling on that record is actually the beauty of that record, So in a sense, I was sterilizing the band in many ways, by making Springer take lessons or whatever and try to change, on introspection. I shouldn't even thought that way, because I was taking the organic SSD and trying to make it better, instead of just letting it go. And I'm an organic guy, but I really felt that to continue, to even make record 3 and 4, I felt things had to change because I didn't think there would be a record 3 and 4 unless we did change. Okay. So that's why the change happened. It was never like, oh, we want to be this, we want to be better. That's all we want to be. And we want to be able to like write songs that are better. And we want the singing to be better. And we don't want to get blown off the stage by playing sloppy, fast songs. That's all we were thinking, really wasn't more. And, I could tell you perspective means a lot back then, when we made that move to How We Rock and then the next group, it all felt right. It didn't feel like we were forcing anything really tremendously, but I think and I'm getting to the reason we broke up. So after Break It Up, hence the title Break It Up, we knew we were breaking up when that record came out. And I kind of knew where the history was going, because if you think about it, How We Rock, I gave Modern Method put that out. I didn't put out on my own record label. That should have been the warning sign right there. When the owner of the company is in the band and he doesn't put it out on his own label, that should send signals to someone. So those were the signals. I wasn't sure what if this was right, because I wouldn't have gave it away if I really believed in it. I got to tell you that right now. I would not have given that record away if I believed in it. I didn't know if it was right, but we recorded it, like spent a lot of money recording it. So, am I going to not put it out or whatever? And I am a firm believer in documentation. I think it's important to document it. So I guess the choice would be to not put it out, right? And not release like those last 20 songs. I elected to put them out. I knew they weren't going to be popular. We knew, we were getting spit at, we knew. But I felt it was more important to put them out, just lay it on the line, say, this is how we rock. Like, I mean, even that title is kind of absurd when you think about it. I mean, who puts on a record, How We Rock? I just was trying to say, this is what we're doing. This is how, we're being true. You might not like it, but it's real. This is real. We're not like, we weren't forcing anything really. We were just kind of evolving and yeah, I mean, and then I can just tell you about perspective. I remember like looking at it like in '89, looking at 96. I don't listen to these records much at all. I probably listened to those last two records maybe two times in 25 years or whatever, not often. But when I did check, I remember I was trying to think, did I get it right? Did I get it wrong? And it's changed sometimes. Sometimes I think I mean I remember what we were doing, and sometimes I think, yeah, we should have let it go. We did the right thing. And sometimes I say, I don't know. So like I
So
can't even
yeah,
answer.
I had that album when it came out, and I liked it because I had heard Metallica and Slayer,
Yeah,
and I was kind of going that direction anyway. But I remember like a real pushback against it. And
yeah.
do you feel like you must have been hurt, right? I mean, did you feel like the scene turned on you or something like that? Was that?
No, not really, because I can't say that, but I mean, I remember there was someone recently on a podcast. I think it was, he said that he can't, he went along for the entire journey. He wasn't gonna jump off the ship after get it away. He came along for the journey, which I mean, yeah, if I could have picked, that's what I wished everyone did. I'm gonna come along for the journey. But I get it from the fans' perspective. I completely get it. A lot of the things that was wrong with SSD, I tried to improve upon in the next band. I mean, I was taking a lot of mental notes, and there was mistakes we made. One of the biggest mistakes we made is that by the time a record came out, we already were playing the next record. It's not a good thing to do. It's a
Yeah.
terrible thing to do, and so many bands fall into that trap. And
So after 95, you kind of exit music for a few years. You kind of come back in 92, 93-ish maybe with Gage.
85, yeah. So 85, I sold. 85, important that I saw the scene breaking apart too, as well as my band. I also saw the scene breaking apart, the Boston scene. Okay, I saw the the central location now shifted a little bit. It wasn't the galleries or the media workshop. Now it was the clubs, and it was soon to be the Rat, I believe, and stuff like that. So there was a shift going on, and there was a street in Boston that I refer to called Queensbury Street. And I felt that my crew was being dragged into this Queensbury Street. I'll label Queensbury Street as the den of destruction or something. And nothing good happened on Queensbury Street. Let's just put it that way, okay? I didn't even hang out on Queensbury Street. It was a very inert. It was right one street parallel to Fenway Park, so it wasn't a bad neighborhood. Okay, it was actually trees and stuff, But there was a lot of stuff going down on Queensbury Street that I felt was not really what I was into, So it seemed like that was where all my crew was going towards. So I could see that going. I'd met Nancy at the time. I started to think about, you know, I definitely didn't want, I at the time I was thinking of, we had achieved some level of success, whatever that, is. And then we kind of like, started going downwards a little bit with the last two records, but it still was, we still could play places and stuff, right? So I remember having this thought saying, hey, we've achieved this level, we could still make records and stuff, whatever, even though, like I said, we did hurt ourselves maybe with those last two, the third and the fourth record. I said, do I want to hold on to this, or would I rather throw it away and start from scratch again? And I said, fuck it, I'd rather throw it all away and start from scratch again. I think it's not an easy thing to do, and a lot of people a lot of people don't make that decision. They just hang on and, fire a couple people, add a couple new people, because they built all the momentum up to that point. To throw away all that and then start from scratch isn't it's really hard to do. It's not easy to do at all. And most people are going to tell you, most people don't have two bands in them. It's certainly two bands that are going to be liked by the public. So it's not it's daunting, I would say. Yeah, maybe Ian, you could say, is an exception because he had Fugazi after My Threat. Maybe outdid his first band. But that's the exception, I think, than the rule. But he walks on hallowed ground, so he didn't have the same rules us mortals have to live with. As far as like I think the critics always a little bit more receptive to his thing than our thing.
Yeah, probably.
Yeah.
So we're starting to talk about this. You come back with this band Gage. So which I liked that CD, by the way.
I'd like your review was this highlight of the, because it was an honest review, like I knew you might not like that kind of music or something, but I thought it was an honest review, so I appreciated that. I thought some of the reviews, I just want the honest ones. Don't like get hung up on that I was in SSD, because I didn't go around trying to use that as my business card, hey, I think the only time we opened up the Mighty Bosstones in New York, and it was actually a mistake, the only time that I leveraged anything from SSD into anything, and it was probably a mistake because that was like our second show and we weren't ready for that, my singer wasn't ready for that. Anyways, so Gage was the same idea. I was building another team. Okay. I had kind of spent a little time at GE. Now I spent like 90 to like, so we're going like late 80s, into like 90, 91, let's say. Okay. I started getting to the stock market, actually, believe it. Okay. And I started to not day trade, but trade a lot. Okay. And I made some heavily investments in Apple. Apple was like, I think it was traded maybe in the 20s. It didn't tank out yet, but I started to get into Apple, Motorola, pre-cell phones. I was thinking about this. So I was going to be this like stockbroker, basically, but I was still as an engineer, but I was really getting into that. And then all of a sudden, my father dies in 92, okay, which, was a big thing for me because, he was like a rock for me. I kind of look back. I wish during the SSD years in the 80s, and maybe, like I kind of should have spent more time with my father because I guess I didn't know he was going to be gone so quick. So he died. He got sick in 90, maybe 90, brain tumor. And I remember when he gets sick, I went to like Harvard in 90, or it was either he lasted 18 months. So I'm guessing it was either half of 90 or 91. But I went to like Harvard. I pulled all these books on brain tumors down, tried to figure out what was going on. I did all the research. It said he was going to die in 18 months. He had high grade glioblastoma. So I knew he was going to go then, but he'd already had the tumor removed and he was kind of like, he wasn't really there. So I kind of regret that. So anyways, my father dies. I'm lost. Once again, I said, I need something to save my life now. And I picked music again. Music saved my life in SSD, I thought, because, I told you about that period from 75 to 80. It was a little bit, I avoided a lot of bad things. Okay. Let's just say I was lucky, maybe. Okay. There's a lot of things that could have gone the other way. I had a couple of friends that got stabbed and I happened to be not there that night. So there's a lot of weird things that happened that saved me, actually. And I was the center of troublemaking. So like, if anyone should have got hurt, it should have been me, So, anyways, music saved my life. It kind of rescued me from, I thought if I continued doing that, it wasn't going to end up good, So once again, my father dies. I need music to save me. I decided I'm going to start Gage. Another, like, I still had balls, I guess, back then because, it's even worse. Who's going to play with me? I'm older, I'm like in my 30s, I'm like, who the hell is going to want to be in a band with me? It was a tough sell, I really, anyways, I persevered and a couple different lineups. I almost quit a couple times. I had this, funny stories. I almost could have quit, but anyways, I stuck with it, and we put those records out. I ended up finding guys that, once again, off the street that were never destined to be in bands, never destined to sing in bands. I'm talking like guys off the street of East Boston, you know, they were in my band and I loved it. I thought it was great. These weren't the typical kind of guys in the band. So, and I thought we made great music, and that band was set up to appreciate recording music. I wanted to do what everything SSD couldn't do. I wanted to have songs that you could sing, singing songs that based around singing and melody. I wanted to appreciate the studio, embrace it, love it, and I built my own recording studio to make those records. So it was about the entire process. Like I brought cello and violinist in. Who the hell am I to bring a cello and violinist in my cellar to record a record? This is insane. But I did it. and I pulled it off. I pulled it off, man. Like if you listen to that, I mean, I had to sit there and arrange a violinist and a cello. I don't know how to arrange shit, but I pulled it off. And these are people I just, it's like the connections in life, So those are the things I remember. Like, the day that I brought this violinist and cellos down and I said, man, I hear this on this song, please help me with it, So that band cost me a lot of money. I spent a lot of my own money. I got out of the market, which cost me a lot of money. I mean, a lot of money. That was like the time to stay in the market. But see, that doesn't mean anything to me. I'm trying to tell you that because I have no regrets. I honestly have no regrets because, I'm sitting here. I'm disabled. I don't have a job. I've been out of work since 2017. I never. I'm not going to say I don't need a car and I don't need a roof over my head, because I do, and I need the tools to make music or make art or whatever. So I'm not gonna sit here in the line and say I don't need money, but I'm gonna say that money doesn't drive me. It doesn't. That's not my goal. It's never been my goal. It's not my focus. So I don't regret Gage. No one knows Gage. Okay, like it. Like I said, that review's great, but very people understand Gage, and people that know me from SSD, it's probably not going to be a connection, because they would have to be song people. Like I think a person's like who like is a song, I can just say, is like really into songs, by themselves, the song, I think they would get Gage, but if you're not into songs, and you're probably not going to get it. But anyways, a long thing, very proud of both bands, and they're both, the journeys of both bands and what we put out were like the rewards.
Sure. You brought up something just before, and it was a question I had, and it's probably a little hard, but
Yep.
You've dealt with some severe medical issues. Basically, you're basically handicapped from this GE job, and you're the straight edge guy who had to go on opiates and get a
Yep.
medical marijuana license. So talk about this whole dark, twisted path you've endured. And also, I can't help but get away from the fact that thinking about that you gave up the music dream for the security and you almost died from it. So
yeah, well, I got to tell you one thing, because you've mentioned, like, I'm just trying to, like, the one thing I thought through my whole life is that if you live the right way and you do good for other people, that in the end you don't have anything to worry about. Like that was my, I always thought that if you do things, you don't really have to worry about, like, things will take care of themselves. Okay, so I did think that. Okay, so I did put my body in a lot of bad positions, and I didn't certainly didn't protect my body. Okay, and that, that's just, I'm talking in several areas. I mean, I used to do these sand ingestion tests. I never used to wear a mask. We're blowing silica all over the place. And I'm sitting there, developing these tests to evaluate how much sand goes through an engine, like in the desert. And so, like, I really have a sense of loyalty to these company, like to this company, that I was going to do everything it took to give them the data they needed, and sometimes even put my health at risk, and it's not right. I've learned, since that, certainly that flawed way of thinking, because they don't give a shit about you, in the end, they don't give a fuck about you. So, I don't get a do-over, unfortunately. So going back, I can tell you, I look at my life in segments, okay, 20-year segments. It happen to just be first 20 years, okay, just got me up to the point of SSD, that middle that middle leg of the next 20 years, and into the we're like SSD into Gage, actually, okay, and some work involved in that. Then the last 20 years has been this back problem. So this back problem started me like around 2000. So it's been about 20 years, okay, and I don't know how it's really happened. Nothing sticks out at me. I just know one day my right leg started going numb, and I couldn't walk. And from there, you open open my whole world up to the medical system in this country, and doctors and trusting people, and trusting hospitals. And I so first time I faced this kind of pain. So I never took a painkiller in my life at this point, right? Even when I had my wisdom teeth out, I remember during SSD, grueling pain, and I never took a painkiller because I was tougher than that. So this back thing came on to me. I never felt anything like this, never felt any pain like this, but it was like shooting down my entire leg. Changed my life. I had it for like a year. I did my own research on surgeries and stuff, trusting people, saw multiple surgeons. Ultimately, couldn't take the pain any longer. I started taking like Percocet, because I took Percocet, Flexerol, and Soma or something, anything to kind of manage the situation. Didn't get too much into the straight edge thing at this point. Just thinking like, I was thinking more like I got to work, because this last 20 years is an important period, because I won't have a pension if I don't really work. So, I remember along the way people saying, you should just, go on disability, go on disability. Like, why the fuck do I want to go on disability, man? Especially because I got to tell you, when I used to go to work every day, I can say this with complete and utter honesty, I enjoyed every minute of the day that I went to work. I loved going to work every day, because I didn't like going to their work and like, go into their structure. I went to work every day, my job, my structure, my place. Very rarely did I have to interact with those people. And when I did, we battled, we butted heads or whatever. But I had a whole different approach. I made my job enjoyable. A couple long, they tried to take me down so many times, you wouldn't believe it. And that's when it got ugly, made me really upset, because I was so loyal to them. And yet these people were trying to take me down. Like, I'm telling you, unbelievable stories. I could spend a whole podcast on what they tried to do to me. Okay. And all of it was like complete bullshit. These fake fucking phony people. I mean, this is like, I shouldn't go up. Nah, let's skip that story, but I almost had like good workplace violence, because this guy literally made this. I gotta tell a story. Fuck it, I gotta tell a story. You can cut it out later. But I'm really into my engineering career, and we had this test. It was for this CF-34, which is an engine for a bombardier plane. Okay, and I'm this compressor that the engineers designed. We're testing it, and the engine is performing terrible. Compressor's performing terrible. Well, this guy comes over. He used to come over with his little notepad every day. Come down, see how things are going. Well, come to find out, he's going back to meetings saying that I was fucking up the test. Okay, blaming me. So I was so blown away by this, that this guy would be going back to meetings, pointing the finger at me. I was like, so I learned this important lesson. There are people in life that make themselves look good by putting you down. Okay. And I learned that was a big thing right there. So I was like 91. I'm like, man, this is a whole new level of phoniness. They're actually going to make themselves look like by putting you down. So I went after this guy. I was in front of his office. I don't know what would have happened. Okay. But some human resources person took me out and drove me outside the plant or whatever. Now, this is many years later, workplace violence is a much bigger thing. We hadn't any formal plans back then. And I would have got fired if that happened, 10 years later or 5 years later. But it's an important story, because there's sharks out there, man. And if you're not aware of it, if you're naive and you go through life thinking that everything's going to work out good, if you think positive about everything will turn out okay. That's not the story, man, because that's not life. It's not real, and that's the best way I can say it, that I had a choice to make, which was, to work, to continue my career, to continue to do what I'm doing. And I took these medicines. Okay. I think in many ways I was the poster child for OxyContin. I mean, I hit it right at the right time. Okay. And I was on a lot of it. Okay. I was on 240 milligrams a day, high doses. I've been on as much as 700 milligrams of oxycodone a day. I've been on lot of medicine. Okay. I have a extremely high tolerance. Okay. And the other thing is I don't get like naughty on medicine. I kind of plow through pain, but eventually all medicine stopped working. So the medicine thing isn't the long-term solution. I was looking for someone to help me. I just was trying to buy time, keep on working, trying to buy time. I've ended up having 5 or 6 operations, multiple fusions. I've got a real long fusion from T6 all the way to my lumbar, and I won't lie, it's challenging. It's like the last 20 years have been a waste, in many sense. I worked, most of it, but I probably was performing at 70% of my potential, which isn't bad. Better 70% is way better than most people. But wasn't my tops, and I did look. The only thing about the relation of straight edge, I used to think, that it's funny. I just think it's funny that the guy who was like pumping straight edge is now the guy who's the poster child for rocks. I would like to even make that poster. It would be funny to me, because it's ironic. It's life, There's no certainty in life, So you can, when you're 20, you can say yada 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 yada, but you don't know in those other phases in life what life's going to throw at you. I mean, at 20, and I'm gonna make a statement here. I believe in straight edge today more than I ever believed in it. Okay, I believe in it. If even possible, I believe in it more than when I was 20. Okay, only from new perspective I've gained from the other 20 years and stuff that I don't even know why people would even want to take heroin, to be honest, or any of this stuff. I don't even I had to take it because of this pain, but recreationally, I don't know why someone would want to put them through all that, all the, because it's not easy living, for the little, I don't know, because it's hard for me to relate to, because I'm a pain perspective. I'm trying to be normal, and what I know about junkies, I think, or maybe I don't want to call them what I know of people that use, I think they also want to be normal, you know. So in the end, they're doing the same thing I'm doing, almost like trying to be normal, So how they ever get into it, in the end, they're just trying to be normal. They're not even trying to get high. Uh, Now, shift to the weed thing. Of course, a lot of my lyrics were against marijuana again, but I mean, I had no perspective from it. Didn't know anything what it was about, really. Okay, never really tried it. Maybe I took a hit once when I was, 16 or something, but never really knew what the effects of marijuana was. So I wrote about a lot of things that I maybe didn't know a lot about, but I made general statements, which maybe the guy now wouldn't make those statements. Once again, I still believe in straight edge more than anything, but I think marijuana is an interesting medication, or plant. It's a shame that we haven't studied it for the last 50 years, because I think it, on a personal level, I think it's probably going to affect different people different ways. And I think different strains are going to affect people different ways. And I think there's too much randomness right now that, to send a guy like me into and I spent a lot of money trying different strains and all. I mean, you wouldn't believe how much money I've spent trying to learn as much about this as I've grown my own plants. Okay. Just to learn about it. Okay. And I think it's something that shouldn't be treated lightly. I think it's, I don't think any young kid should really do it. That's my own thing. I mean, you can do, there's plenty of time
I
to do
think
it.
they've actually shown that it creates a problem with brain growth if you do it too much before like 18, basically. That's basically what they found out.
Yeah, I don't even know what the research says, but I'm going to tell you my intuition.
Yeah.
I don't think it's a performance enhancing drug. I think it's, on a personal level, I think it's good for anxiety, maybe, I think it's tremendous for anxiety. Like, I know all the SSRI, like during this pain thing, all these doctors try to put me on antidepressants. They insist that I'm depressed all the time. I'm not saying I'm depressed. I'm depressed because I'm under this pain that you wouldn't believe. I feel like there's an elephant on my back right now. Okay. Tell me you're not going to be depressed if you felt like, I mean, I feel the pressure of an elephant sitting on my back right now. Okay. So you tell the average guy he's not going to be depressed if an elephant's sitting on his back 24/7. I wake up during the night, not from like, I wake up because the pain hurts so much, Every 20 minutes, I have to roll over my side, my back, my front. I have to get out of bed. I mean, it never was like this. This is only recently. Okay. So, life's going to throw a lot of curveballs at you. And I think it'd be naive to just say, hey, you're gonna, this is how your life's gonna be. You're gonna be in this box. Who the hell knows? I think it's ironic with my do I regret? I regret it from the sense that I've had to suffer a lot. Do I regret the empathy, the understanding, the compassion that I've learned over the last 20 years? Absolutely not. I've learned more about life in the last 20 years than I've learned in the first 40. So it's a tough lesson, man. I don't think anyone would pay the dues that I've learned, but I've learned a lot. I've learned a lot about myself that I never knew, and I've learned a lot about straight edge, about drugs, about mental illness, about depression, anxiety. I mean, I remember I used to, I wasn't open-minded to all these ailments when I was younger. Like people would tell me about anxiety or panic attacks, and I'd be like, I don't know what you're talking about. I didn't think they existed. I was like a denier. And no, I was wrong. I was wrong, and so that's perspective that the 40-year-old guy didn't know when he was 20. That and I've taken even a step further. That I can straight edge was a choice, and believe me, it's an important choice. I think that choice needs to be there, but I would never judge someone, because I didn't, I'm not in their shoes. I don't know what they're going through. Who am I to say you can't? Whatever you got, they got. I just want the choices to be there for them to make. Like, see, I didn't think there was a choice there for me. Okay, so that's I'm not judgmental on people what they got to do. I do think it's funny that now you look back, it almost seems like everyone's path ends up that way to so many levels. People are getting there different ways. So you can get there the way where you end up going to 12-step programs, which I might even the fact that those people can be that like spend like 24 years using and all of a sudden one day stop. I have a lot of respect to those people, because I don't think that's easy to do. I don't even know what flipped the switch in their brain after all those years to say that, because I don't know. I know personally, like, every drug has its own little thing, and but everyone's gotta figure it out. I go on TikTok. I mean, if you ever go on TikTok, everyone on there is like an ex heroin addict. So you hear the stories. There's sad stories. A lot of them are stories. These people have come back from it. Those are great stories. But it's a tough lesson to learn getting there.
Sure is.
I guess
Sure
I don't have the answer, but so I want to definitively on the marijuana thing. I currently still use marijuana, right now. Um, in a perfect world, I would stop using the marijuana. I don't right now. I don't feel currently I can, because when I have I stopped the opiates about 8 months ago after the last surgery, and I stopped the marijuana for like 30 or 40 days. But I found myself slipping into like a real mental depressive state where I was like, bordering on suicide, So I felt that I needed to get some more time, some more time. And so I elected to stay on the marijuana for a little bit longer. I think it brings a whole new set of marijuana brings a whole new set of uh,
issues.
issues along with it. I might not want to have an appetite. All of a sudden, I smoke the marijuana for my anxiety, and all of a sudden, I'm hungry as a bastard, or something. Or some people smoke it and they get paranoid. I hear,
Yeah.
So what I'm saying, that there's the differences. It's a powerful drug. Don't get me wrong, but we don't know enough about it, And I would, if I was a young kid, I would kind of stay away from it. That would be my advice. I don't think you got plenty of years to check it out. That's my best advice, man. To a young kid, man, you're gonna have some you're gonna have some things when you're 40 and you're 50 and you're 60. You're gonna need maybe something,
Yeah.
So keep that option available. That's all I can say. I don't think you should take it off the table when you're young.
Yeah, for sure, for sure. Before this interview, I promised you that we would wait till the end of the interview to talk about politics. One reason I really reached out to you was because Donald Trump has really fueled a lot of your rage. I don't know. Take that subject where you want to. I don't really even have a question. so much.
Donald Trump represents my entire life, the entire fight against my life. Donald Trump stands for lying. He's a fraud. He's a con man. Donald Trump is that manager I see at GE that I worked my entire life to fucking expose and and just rally against him. That manager at GE was a fucking phony, fake guy. I never could relate to that guy. I could, like I said, I could tell a whole entire story of the, I really tried to. Once again, the team thing ended when I hit the GE. I was trying to bring another team, change the whole culture in a corporate way. And this Trump guy, he came in 2016, so I was still working there. He came on the scenes. I could see this whole right wing thing building. I saw the union guys in 2008 start to drift away from the Democratic Party and towards Republicans. I saw the whole thing. I got the emails from all the people in exempt people in management who would send the emails about the Tea Party and fuck Obama and this and that. You could see all that racist thing kind of coming. But here's the thing you got to understand. It was coming from people that you never seen before. These weren't the right wing guys. This wasn't the guy that blew up the building in
Oklahoma.
Yeah, actually Gage wrote a song about that, funny. But I mean, this wasn't the guy that blew up the building in Oklahoma. Because we all lived through those cults and those right-wing militia movements. And I remember when that happened, no one knew, like, was there more militias out there? And government. I mean, the FBI did a good job of going to Michigan or whatever and Ohio and breaking those militia groups up. But they probably weren't huge numbers. Who the hell knew what they were? I know that was a seminal moment. I think that we obviously had the guy in Guyana, that cult happened. We had this misinformation. We had, the guy in Waco, Texas. We had this culty behavior. And let's face it, even hardcore has some culty kind of history. So you can't ignore that. And I think at this moment, you could see it festering in 2016. I can remember this moment where like 10 guys were in my office. Guys used to hang around my office because we're all kind of bonding, and these guys, you could see they were heading into the Trump direction. And I heard them all like, kind of like, the locker room, oh, Trump, oh, and I said, time out. And I had to yell, time out. You fucking guys don't know what you're messing with. This guy is a bad man. I said, I followed this guy since the 80s because when I, hung around I went to New York, I used to tabloid paper and watch all that, more Downey shit and all that, all that talk. And, he was on the tabloid, all Trump, So, with a Geraldo shows or whatever, I knew his act, It's fucking poor. He's like, he is the con man when I think of him, okay? There's guys at GE, like my manager was like a con man, when I look at those two faces, I have the same disgust when I see my manager's face and I see Trump's face. And so I'm warning all my friends. At the same time, I see my friends, people aren't aware of it. I see them, they're all starting to buy weapons, guys that never would have a weapon started buying guns. You could see it all happening, this the real just negative talk, racist talk, bullshit. You could see, and these are union guys. Union guys would always vote Democrat. So you could see the change. I mean, if the Republican Party saw it coming, but I saw it coming, I saw this transformation appealing to these people, I mean, I saw things coming that shocked me because I knew these are things I saw in 1980 with bands like Screwdriver and, white nationalist kind of things, the KKK. I mean, SSD kind of rallied against that stuff at times. We saw if those guys came to Boston, we went after them. I was seeing it now at my company. I could see the festering of it, and I was like, this isn't gonna good. So, anyways, he won. I was shocked, and I said, well, okay, it's gonna be entertaining another 4 years. And I said, at least I'll have something to think about or do. So only thing I was just trying to. I don't want to tell people anything, okay? That's not my thing, okay? I don't tell people. I just want to, if people can't, I'm not sure if everyone thinks like basically I don't even like I don't like Google stuff and try to. I just like think things out. Okay, I'll just walk you through an exercise because it might not be. Let's talk about vaccine and vaccines. Okay, here's how I think about vaccines. Okay, historically we've had these viruses over the years. Thousands of what mankind been around. Uh, Egyptians 4,000 years ago, something like that. These viruses have come up historically, through cycles and periods of years. This isn't something new, okay? I think vaccines might go back to the, 10th century or whatever, Chinese people trying to figure out how to, because these plagues would wipe out, 500 million people or something, So this isn't something new. So this is how I think of things. I'm like, so they weren't technically there as proficient as we are, but they were still trying to solve problems, cure disease, right? Cure pestilence, make sure your crops can grow. Okay, this is all science and technology, man. So, so the evolution of advancements in science, we've got vaccines now. We've got like what three vaccines about to be on the market, maybe as many as 5 or 6, right? So when I think of this, I just look at the numbers. There's 6 vaccines. There's 15,000 people work at the CDC, 15,000 people work at the FDA. There's every government has their own infectious disease experts. Okay, if someone's not screaming that, hey, you're gonna die, your arm's gonna fall off right now, I gotta guess that numbers say it's pretty odd that all these people are colluding against the people. They're all colluding. It just doesn't make sense to me. You know what I'm saying? So I don't get into like the real specifics. I'm just saying the numbers don't make sense. We could not have 15,000 FDA and 15,000 CD all saying, okay, let's go with it. And these peer-reviewed science, doctors throughout the country. It just doesn't make sense. Now, is there someone who's probably waving a red flag? Yes, I believe in the 20% rule. Okay, 20% of the people are fucking freaks. Okay, and they're gonna complain about something, or they're gonna, they probably have a job issue where they're getting kicked out of the FDA or something. So there's always gonna be someone saying something. Okay, but they're the they're the noise. The real centrist opinion is somewhere in here, right? You got the people that are purists who just think this way. You got the crazy people, and you got this 60% in the middle, okay, who's got to figure it out. I'm just trying to relate on how I think, okay? Other people might not think how I think, and certainly you might say, well, that's your perspective, okay? I'm just saying that here's how I think. I don't think Bill Gates is developing vaccines to control America. I don't think Monsanto's creating seeds to control the food we eat. I believe engineers' intention was to create seeds that made the crops more resistant to disease, pestilence, weather, only to help people. Now, could something go bad along the way or go off course? Most definitely. There's nothing perfect in life. I remember there was an acne drug that actually had acne in my shoulders at one time. And I read it like it caused if you gave to a woman, you should have fetus, the fetus would get problems. So, there's nothing anytime you put something in your body, something could happen. But I just don't believe in it. I believe there's too much of this this right-wing conspiracy talk, and I believe it's going to be our downfall if we don't correct. We need to auto-correct. I think we might be past the point of auto-correction, but I'm going to tell you, if we allow people to just, and for the last 4 years, the Republicans allowed Trump to just continue another conspiracy, another crazy idea. No one corrected him. If Mitch McConnell, some of the other guys had said, wait a minute, time out, you're full of shit, Trump, or something. No one called him out on it ever, right? I mean, the Democrats call him out, and CNN or MSC, but I mean, what does that do? That just creates more divide. Really, it had to be their own team policing that. Okay, so some people, I've tried to reach out. I've lost a lot of friends through this Trump thing. I've lost some friends in hardcore. I lost all my friends at GE. Okay, those friends, that was like 35 years of friendship, and I've lost them all. But I don't think there's really, I don't think the two can coexist. I mean, you can be a Republican. I mean, a real Republican, old school Republican, and coexist. But you can't believe in conspiracies about eating babies and all that shit. And that like I said, if that world exists with my world, then I'm gone, you know. I'm gone because I don't make up stories, and I'm not that creative, you know. So, you know, that's kind of what Trump means to me. You know, I've been somewhat politically active my whole life. I mean, I was aware of you know, the first, and you can say this is what Trump means. My first political awareness was like 68 and 72 elections of Nixon, you know. And what I, you know, that left an indelible impression that this guy is a fucking fraud, you know. And you know, so that's what I but I mean, I in general, I think that about all politicians. But I think it's the level of phoniness, you know, when it comes down to politicians. Because I'm going to tell you another thing: where it's politicians or leaders in corporations, you don't get to those positions without that fake shit. Okay, I'm not saying it's right, because it isn't right. It's wrong. I'm just telling you the way the system is set up right now. Like the system that kind of beat me down, or the system is that you right now will not get to be a senator unless you got that some degree of that fake shit in you. Okay, it's just how much of it is fake. You know, I
Right,
think
right.
the Republicans took it to a new level. That's so that is my passion right there. It's really not about I's and D's, you know, because you know I understand the importance of a two-party system. And actually, at one time, I think I believed that a three, you know, more parties was better. I don't even know if that's. I don't know. You know, I believe our government is an amazing attempt at trying to organize a society into kind of some kind of fair process. And I don't think it's the institutions that are the problem. I think it's the people that are the problem. Okay. So to attack the government and to just say, you know, whatever, storm the government, storm this, I think you're being naive because you know, here goes back to my thinking process. Okay. So you tell me that we're going to storm the government and then I'm going to stop believing these motherfuckers to now be my new leaders. I don't think that's, you know what I'm saying? I mean, that doesn't add up. I'll trade in a new lead. I'll trade in an old leader for a new leader when I see something like, you know, like if I was traded, you know, if I was upgrading, you know, an average NBA player to like LeBron James or something, you know, like yeah, show me the upgrade or something, but just don't, you know, don't show me that upgrade and say, yeah, this is what I want, you know. I mean, don't tell me that there's a bunch of people and I thought the same way about hardcore too. Don't tell me, yeah, we're gonna all, you know, do this, but I'm now gonna believe that you're gonna be better than them. You know, I didn't see it, you know. Maybe it's out there, but I didn't see it. So, you know, I'm not gonna just make those kind of statements to say, you know, like, you know, whatever. I just think if people are empowered, you know, empowered to make, you know, the kids will have to say. The whole thing was, you know, I didn't think the kids had any say when I was growing up. You know, like I mean, I didn't ever say to name the golf course after a fucking pedophile. I never say to continue to play hockey because I thought I was one of the best players there was. I didn't ever say really too much, you know. So kids would say was supposed to say, you know what, I'm gonna find my voice. It may take me a little while, but I'm gonna find my voice, and then you're never gonna shut me up, you know. But it took me a while, you know. Even during the '80s, I remember having to give a presentation at Northeastern in front of a crowd of my peers who were students. Right, I was petrified. I couldn't even speak publicly in front of them. Petrified. I mean, you know, this is a guy who was up on stage in front of people. I couldn't feel comfortable in front of my own peers who I went to school with for all these years. Okay. Well, I had to get through that. I had to work through it. This is probably like 84, 85, 86. The technique I used, I went up there and I just screamed at him. I went up in front of the audience at the school, my class, and I just yelled at him. It allowed me to get through it, you know. But it was, you know, but I think things like that allowed me to be a little bit more self-confident. You know, when I showed up at GE and I had all these people these sharks trying to eat me up, you know, and the idealist guy who was doing all these crazy things, you know, I wasn't going to let them eat me up. So that's all I can say. What Trump really is, he's the worst. You know, he's the worst there is. Well, he's the best at what he is, but he's the worst. He's the worst, you know. And I've also said this that I'm not even mad at Trump. I mean, I'm not even like I hate. No, I don't say I really don't like the guy, but I'm more upset about all my friends and all the people right now that still hanging on to him. That's the real scary thing. The scary thing isn't about Trump. It's about the people that can't see the truth, you know, because right, to some of us it's so obvious, you know.
Yeah, you know, there was an article in the New York Times that a couple days ago where they talked about where a reporter went through the social media of people who were highly radicalized right wing now
Yep.
and looked at their email, looked at their social media from 3 years ago, and it wasn't close to that.
Really.
It
So they
was
become
like they had just
radicalized,
been
right? So
so radicalized by all this stuff that's been going on.
right.
I think the woman who died at at Congress was one of those. So I
Well,
guess my my
you said that thing about radicalization. It's important because I saw that radicalization with women at my office, okay, buying guns, getting into this whole thing. Fox News has a big role in that. Absolutely. I monitor Fox News, okay? And their gotcha TV, they know how to tweak like the average quote, that's 60% in the middle. They know how to tweak them by telling these little stories about how this guy was denied his right or something like this. They're very good at what they do, and they peak in the night as Sean Han. They peak as they go up in the night. They get more radical, more kind of crazy, and it's you've got to say it's a form of mind control in many ways because it's really well done. I think the other news outlets have an agenda. Obviously, I don't think it's quite as nefarious as Fox News. But so and of course we got the First Amendment staring at all this stuff, okay? And I'm not sure the First Amendment. I'm a big believer in the First Amendment. Freedom of press, I think, is a very important thing. You can never take away freedom of press. His attack on the freedom of press should have been stopped immediately by both parties, and everyone else in Washington should have said you can't attack the press. I mean, if the press is biased, whatever, it's biased because it's Fox News. If it wasn't Fox News, it wouldn't be biased, probably. I just feel that people need to stand up and speak out, ultimately about this whole situation. And I think people in hardcore have been far too quiet about this. I think, when people say, "Hey, I don't want to get political," it could be the code word that they don't want to say who they like. I don't know. I think they should be a little
well,
bit more clear.
like I said, we could keep this going for hours, but for brevity's sake, I kind of wanted to close it with one final. Well, I have something to ask after that, but
Yeah.
I just kind of wanted to go into, there was Nostradamus, and now there's
Yes.
Nostra Almos.
Yes.
So what does Nostra Almos think of the future of music and live performance, especially in this era?
Yeah. Nostradamus thinks that it might be a changing time right now. Because I think a lot of it depends on how well we come back from this virus thing, right? I mean, from the beginning of this, when this virus thing happened, I was pretty on it pretty quick that I knew that this was going to change our lives. Just once again, thinking through it, thinking how these Asian countries were always wearing masks and always worried about viruses, and how we never felt that here. I just said, man, the hens, what is it? The hens have come home, the roost or something. I mean, I could just see it. You could see the world was changing in a significant way in 20, with the and you know I think Trump had a layup. I mean, he could have this would have been the easiest thing as a president. Just let the science kind of dictate everything. And then what happened, you couldn't blame him for anything. Well, he fucked that up. Only one guy could fuck that up. He fucked it up, because I think that would have helped him get through into the elections. He fucked it up. Only he could fuck it up. So I think live music, I don't know, I guess these young kids think differently. Maybe they want to get into a sweaty club like that, breathing on each people because they think they're immune to it, but it's really not about them. It's when they go home and spread it, right? And the whole thing from the beginning has been about breaking our healthcare system. It's always been about that, about trying to manage this situation so it doesn't break our healthcare system. So, for all the people who don't understand the mask, it's just making it so you can't, you can go to a hospital if you're sick, right? Imagine if you can't go because the healthcare system broke down because we had too much. So that's always about managing the numbers. I mean, I remember when the deaths were like 60,000. I remember seeing Trump going up there saying, "Oh, it looks like we're going to top out around 60,000." I remember because I was when the numbers. There was a 2 million number, and that was if we didn't do nothing. And you can see how it can get to that because we're almost at 500,000 right now, right? If you didn't do anything, any shutdowns, it would have made it to the 2 million mark easily, right? So once again, numbers don't lie. The things in life that guide us are really the mathematical equations that guide the world. gravity, momentum, conservation of energy and stuff. So these things don't change. The numbers don't change. They're the things that tell the truth. If people are people, this this is the overriding message that I've learned over my life right now is we're getting more greedy and more selfish of a society. The whole last segment of my life, the 2000s. I've just from my interactions with hospitals and doctors, I've seen the greed, I've seen the selfishness, I've seen it at work, I've seen it everywhere. Okay, I've seen people basically just out for their own self-interest. So I've seen it grow and grow and grow and grow. And ultimately, I think that's how it will end. We're going to eat each other, and so Nostradamus has been predicting these kind of things. I mean, the good thing about making predictions is people can change the outcome of the future, right, by taking action. So whatever. I'm not trying to scare people, whatever. And also, I'm kind of laughing at it because I also think making predictions like Nostradamus did, you can kind of know where to hit on, right? I mean, there's like certain tendencies that you gain over historical perspective, right? I'm sure Nostradamus had the advantage of probably learning about some things, events that led up to his predictions, and projected forward that society and future generations would have to deal with these same kind of things, right? These same things that challenge the world, and so when I joke, I kind of like to call myself Captain Obvious too, because I'm trying to say these aren't real. I'm not trying. I don't want anyone to think that I think I'm a visionary, like I'm seeing visions. Okay, I think it's like kind of funny, right? It's a joke, It's like I'm seeing things that are kind of obvious, And if you don't see them, it's because you're not paying attention, And that brings you to another point. There's a bunch of people out there saying, "Don't watch the news, don't pay attention to what's going on, just do your own thing." Well, I don't believe in putting your head in the sand. I think you have to pay attention. I'm not saying you have to. I'm saying you have to reject other. You can't just like, oh, I'm going to follow Rand Paul now. I'm going to follow Marco Rubio. No, believe in your own ideas. Okay, you can listen to these people, but you don't follow Marco Rubio. Follow Ted Cruz. You'd be dead if you follow those guys. I mean, the point is, you got to listen. You got to look at these people, and you got to understand who they are. They're people, right? They're only people, and people aren't doing. People are not. People. We're not doing well right now. People, we're heading in the wrong direction. As a society, and it's really it's all over the place. You got the you even get the rat. You got some rat. I mean, I don't want. I'm not. There's some people on the left side that don't even understand the word compromise. It's like their way or the highway. That's not how life works. You can't have everything you want. Life is about compromise. Life is about understanding everyone's perspective. There's people on the left that want to just like, fuck it, we've been waiting too long. It's time to take it. So like, I'm all for change, but let's do it. Let's evolve. Let's evolve to a better society, a better. I believe the Constitution is a great framework, but let's that document should evolve a little bit. No one, and I don't think the framers thought that they were going to accurately predict what the future held. Okay, they did a hell of a job laying this out for us. Okay, but to hear these constitutionalists say, "Oh, you can't touch this," it's like it doesn't make any sense. Why would you say a document that old is perfect? You can't touch it. Just doesn't make any sense. So we need people, logical people, to start speaking up and thinking logically. We can't be guided all by religion and these fundamental religious ideas or fundamental nationalist ideas, or the Constitution can't be touched. It just doesn't make any sense. So
I do something called a lightning round. I'll ask you
Okay.
about a band or a person and just say the first sentence or two that comes up. So Black Flag.
Blunt force in your face. That's what I think of Black Flag.
Bad Brains.
Greatest band of all time, but biggest disappointment of all time. The greatest band of all time, but You know, I gotta make that clear. The greatest band, not hardcore band, the greatest band of all time, but also the biggest disappointment of all time.
Well put. Well put. DOA.
Again?
DOA.
DOA?
Yeah.
DOA, like chaos, I guess. I just thought of DOA being like the soundtrack of chaos for me. You know, like I just think of just full on chaos. You know, like no, you know, just like full on chaos. Because I don't know, the DOA shows in Boston were somewhat of the more chaotic ones. I'm not sure. I gotta hope that it was the music that made it that. I believe that. I can't, you know, I can't go back in time. But that's what they struck me. I'm a very important band, you know. And those, I was friends with those guys. They stayed at our house a few times or something like that. But you know, definitely, you know, foundation band.
Well, they Hardcore 81. That
Yeah,
album is like the, you know, kind of like where
blueprint,
everyone got
right?
the concept. Minor Threat.
Minor Threat, I'd put them in top 5 hardcore bands of all time. Greatest band to play on a bill with, you know, like to be part of a bill with, was them. Like I don't know like how I'd call it, but I'd say the like maybe like the most important band in the world.
Oh,
I wouldn't say the greatest, but I'd say the most important band in the world.
Circle Jerks.
Circle Jerks were like, I put them like close to DOA in a way, like as far as like chaos, the kind of feeling of just pure utter chaos. And those are the only 2 bands I might think of in that line. But I think they were like, I thought they were like professional, like really professionally. For the amount of chaos, I thought they were real pros at it. If that means anything, you know.
Yeah, that was an incredible live band, right?
Incredible live band, like, you know, like, yeah, top 5 definitely, you know.
Yeah. TSOL.
TSOL, like I wrote about TSOL in that choice, in that in my the thing I wrote in my rules. I thought TSOL was a very great band, very interesting band, because they were different, you know. They weren't like everyone. They had their own unique flavor to the mix, you know. And you know, I think that by itself brought some controversy with them. You know, I remember there was like, you know, a lot of anti-TSOL talk, you know, somewhere in the 80s or something, you know. And I wrote like, you know, yeah, you don't like them, but I mean, just don't like join the crowd and you know, ganging up on them. That's what I felt was going on. I felt like there was like, you know, there was groups that were just ganging up on TSOL. I didn't think they deserved that. So, you know, I just, that's what I meant by it. Like, yeah, are you just like hating on TSOL because everyone else is, or do you really hate TSOL? You know, and I felt there was a bunch of that. You know, so
I
anyways,
remember when they came to Washington, D.C., everybody was like, fuck TSOL, because of that
see, you know,
Rollins thing. And TSOL showed up at these 6'3" surfers, like, what?
yeah.
What? To bring it, you know? And
What
that was the end of the conflict.
tell you, it's funny. So when they played in Boston at Streets, okay, we played with them the show. So I remember going downstage. I think we were on the bill. If we weren't on the bill, we were backstage with them. And I remember downstairs, you know, I heard about TSOL. You know, at the time, I'm like, okay, well, I was gonna say, like, are these guys gonna fucking, you know, when I go downstairs, they're gonna fuck around with me. We're gonna have a, you know, I don't know what's gonna happen, you know. But I remember saying it. These are guys, big guys, you know. But they didn't like, they were nice to me, you know.
Of course.
I didn't know the reputation was what it was, you know. Like, put it this way, if I came downstairs, they immediately started fucking like fighting with me or something. I was like, then that would have been a different TSOL. I didn't think that's who they were, you know, and they weren't that guys.
Yeah.
You know?
What
Nice
an incredibly intense band. I actually had the pleasure of seeing them in the West Coast. And they were
Oh yeah,
a totally different sensation on the West Coast than the East Coast. And it was a
I
big
bet.
deal. It was a big deal. And it was really scary and violent. And
Yeah, they had a scary crowd, right, back then
for
on the West
sure.
Coast.
Oh my
Yeah.
God.
The HB or whatever.
Yep. Another name on this list was John Joseph.
John Joseph. Oh, interesting. You brought him up. I first met John Joseph when I saw the Bad Brains at that 171 show. He told me about he's part of the DC crew, and then I think I met him again a month later at Black Flag played Irving Plaza. Henry came down. This is the show that really left that impression. I had not met Ian at the time. I think we've talked on the phone a bunch of times, but I met Henry, and the impression they gave me, there was 10 or 20 guys there. Okay, I thought they were all from DC. And the impression I got were they were all this, X's on the hand, straight edge guys. Okay, that really, lasting impact, lasting image to me, image of strength and unity, and the guys sticking together, fuck, not drinking. And I said, I could relate to it because, like I said, I was already kind of progressing away from drinking when we went to New York. I remember, I think, we enjoyed that freedom of New York where you could put beer in a brown bag or something and walk around the streets. But I was going through the motions, I really, because believe me, if I was into it, there would have been more wildness going on. I was kind of like just kind of going through the motions, like, because I was with this new set of guys. I mean, this is all the SSD guys and the Boston crew guys, and I didn't feel the same energy that I had a drink with them guys and stuff. So, but anyways, that impression of me and Henry left a strong impression with me. And I said, I'm just going to live my life a different way. I'm just going to like not even go there, like rather than go through the motions, I'm just going to not go there. So those were important times. But John, I think, misrepresented himself to me. Okay. I thought he was part of that whole thing, and he wasn't, because then later on, I find out years later, he had a lot of issues with drugs and stuff. And, I think it's a great story. The fact that he, overcame all those struggles that he had and things like that. And then, goes on to do his Ironman and all those things. I mean, all those things, I admire those things in him, even the fact that, he eats a very clean diet, but what I don't like is when he goes off and stating these facts about things he thinks he knows and he doesn't really know. And, I don't want to go back and forth and debating these facts, but, it just doesn't make sense. But if you logically went through what I went through, that exercise of just logically thinking about some of the things that he's saying, it's just not him too. There's many other people in the scene that believe Bill Gates is like wakes up to screw the whole world. I don't think that way. I think for us to go forward, we need to believe in someone. Okay. We can't just not believe in anyone, or we can't just say, don't believe in them, but I'm going to believe in John Joseph. We can't make those choices. We have to believe in people who we see are trying to make the world better.
How about Harley Flanagan?
Whoa. Like I said, Harley was a little kid when I first met him. He went on to form Cro-Mags, I guess, with John. I don't know enough about all the real intricacies. It sounds like there was many different lineups and more drama than I don't even know, but it's interesting. I gotta admit, I'm more interested about the story because I just, it's an interesting story, I guess, now when you think about it. I don't know, the personal drama between the two of them, but I know they see the world differently. I know Holly's a talented musician, very, very talented musician. I don't know if he's a singer, but I know he's a talented bass player. Maybe, he's a drummer when I knew him. I didn't even know he was a bass player. I didn't even know he played bass, till later, but I think he said something about Boston people somewhere on some video once. I took exception to that. So that's my only comment. I don't think he quite sees things as from our perspective. He might see it from his perspective. In his perspective, it was, there wasn't much of a scene early on the days. I agree. After that Gildersleeve show, there was a much different, it was a later maturing New York hardcore scene. And, certainly they've left their mark. I mean, it's undeniable, right? I mean, all these bands that have kind of, the different evolutions of bands and stuff, I mean, it's undeniable. New York hardcore has left a huge mark, right? Maybe bigger than Boston. I don't know.
How about Springer?
Springer. So Springer, I'm not gonna put Springer in the same category as G.G. Allen, but let's say there's some commonality there. But it's just not the guy. Like, I mean, he's a great front man, but we just, we're different kind of guys, like I don't want to get into it, but like he he would be the guy that goes into a store. He's a taker, not a giver. Let's put it that way. I'm a giver, okay? I'm not a taker, and that's the way I look at things.
Isn't there a story, like, was it in American Hardcore maybe, or I'm trying to remember the source, maybe the American Hardcore book, where he stole something from a store on tour and you made him go back and return it or something like that?
Well, he stole some from the store, and he just I'm not sure. I I don't even know if I think he's still the same guy actually, and I'm still the same guy, so that's pathetic actually. But but he might be worse. But we just look at the world differently. I think he looks at the world as something to take. I look at the world as something to give. Like what can I give back? It's just a different way of looking at things. There's a place in my world for Springer. Can, can we coexist in a band together? That was the struggle. Yeah, yeah. So can we coexist together? We did pretty good, I think, to make it as long as we did. And I think the 2024 thing isn't about me wanting to go back on stage. 2024 is about me trying to save my life, to find, to find a way to get up off the floor and, regain some type of functionality in my life. And it's really a challenge, 2024. But certainly at the same time, 2024 would be a celebration of the band and a way to mend those fences with Springer in a way. Like maybe I'm not going to say they're going to be all love here. There's probably going to be a lot of heat at the beginning, and we might have to get through some tough love. Hopefully we can get past some of the initial reintroductions of ourselves and some to get to get
you must
to some
have
common
issues still about the fact that, I mean, you basically had this guy taking drugs and singing straight edge lyrics, right? I mean, he's singing your heartfelt lyrics about a certain state of mind, and he's of a different state of mind.
I give him credit for it, though. I mean, who can do that? I couldn't do that. I mean, what I'm saying, but I mean, some people can do it. I don't know. Like, I really do give him credit for that. That he could actually do that. And he never said, I can't. Anywhere in the process did he ever say, I can no longer do this? Which is even wilder, right? And and the Break It Up, the reins were removed. He did write some of his own lyrics on that. Not many, but he did write a little bit more on Break It Up. It's just, I don't know. I feel, like I said, I feel weird about it. Like, I'm not the singer. I shouldn't be writing the lyrics maybe, but I did. Do I regret it? I don't regret it, but I give him credit for working with me.
This has been such an amazing interview. I just want to close with one last one. Is what would you say about your legacy, the legacy of Al Barile?
What's my legacy?
Yeah.
My legacy is that I tried to be a good leader and help to empower other people through my empowerment, my self-empowerment, my growth, to make other people, just use their brain, think a little bit, use their head and think things through, and see the world a little bit differently, and open your mind to just, what the choices you make them because you believe in them, not to like just take other people's choices and go along with the crowd. I mean, if that isn't one thing that I could say, is to just not go along with the crowd. Have the confidence, have the power, have the self-belief to stand up to the crowd, really. So I think if you look through all the everything in my life, my career, my music, the Gage thing, was to try, keep trying to get better, right? Wake up every day with a plan to be better than the last day. I think me and John Joseph might agree in that. I've always believed in that. I think it's more than maybe discipline or whatever like that, and coaching. I think there's other things that add in. But I believe in teams. I believe that, we grow strength from each other. I completely believe in teams, and hopefully teams will get us out of this situation right here, that people instead of splitting apart, we'll grow together. Hopefully this unites us instead of divides us. It's not looking backwards, it's looking forwards too. Like, how do we get out of this right now? I mean, I don't know if you follow on Twitter and stuff. There's, certain Republicans have been outspoken during this whole time. Those are the ones that I look up to right now, because they're the bravest ones. They basically gave up their whole life, their whole career, their whole ideology, everything they believed in for like 30 or 40 years. They just basically had to give it away. So those are the courageous people that I look up to.
Awesome. So thank you, Al, for all your amazing input.
I hope you put it together, man. I don't know.
Yeah. Thank you to everyone for listening. Please follow us. Please check out the next thought-provoking American Hardcore podcast. I'm Stephen Blush. See you next time. The American Hardcore Podcast is a production of the Blush Media Network. For further information, blushmedianetwork@gmail.com. Thank you for listening.